become sustainable foresters and helped improve their wealth building ability and their livelihood for their families in the process and for their communities. So what I'd like to do right now is just talk about how we're going to do this. So we're going to have a whole number of people from across the country who are watching this. And while you're here, you're going to be on mute. If you have any tech issues, we want you to use the chat box because we've got people standing by who will help you connect. We're going to have you ask questions after we run the video. And so we're going to want you to use the chat box to do that. You can also share your thoughts in the chat box if you want to underline anything anybody has said or something that you see in the video. And you can also tweet your experience today using hashtag rural innovation or hashtag heirs property. So let me tell you who we're going to have with us this evening. And first of all, we're going to have Chuck Leavell, who I'll introduce in a little more detail in a minute. We have Yvonne Knight Carter, who is South Carolina landowner and board chair of the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. And as I said, Jenny Stevens, who's CEO of the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. Once again, I'm Janet Topolsky with the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group that's been able to put this whole series on together with the center. The first thing I want to do before we do anything else, because we know some of you who are here tonight haven't been in our other sessions today. And if this is your first introduction to heirs property, we want you to at least have a simple definition of it. So I'm going to ask my colleague and partner here, Jenny Stevens, who is the CEO of the Center Heirs Property Preservation, to just give us that simple definition.
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to have been with you all day. If you've stayed here with us, and if this is your first time, welcome. So our sustainable forestry program has both heirs property owners and those with clear title. So I'll just give you the definition of heirs property. Heirs property is land that has been passed down without a will, or the loved ones of the deceased individual. They did not probate that person's estate within the time allotted by state law. Therefore, the deed to the property remains in the name of the deceased individual, and his or her heirs now own this land jointly, which is a vulnerable form of owning land. And what one member does can upset the ownership status for the other members. I'll turn it back to Janet.
Thanks. So what I'd like to do now, before we get the movie started, or the movie or the film or the video, whatever we should appropriately call it, the segment started, I want to have it take the chance to, or the opportunity to have each one of the people we're going to ask questions of later say something. So first of all, I want to introduce Chuck Leavell. And Chuck Leavell is known to many people as a musician. First with the Allman Brothers Band, or maybe there was a band before the Allman Brothers Band, Chuck, and then with Sea Level, and then with he's been the keyboard player on the road for the Rolling Stones for quite some time. But the most important thing about Chuck, for the purposes of this evening, is that he's a tree farmer. And I think you've got a tree farm. Is it in Twiggs County, outside of Macon, Georgia, with your wife?
It is indeed, Georgia.
And has been a sustainable forester and has been on the board of the American Forest Foundation, the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, and the U.S. Forest Service has also named him an honorary forest ranger, and I don't think it gets better than that. I have to say to you, Chuck, that there is someone who emailed me this afternoon who is a big fan of Sea Level. I want you to know that, and therefore you have people watching this across the country who think that that's the greatest band of all time. So I just want you to know that. And and I want you to know that also, when I was checking things out, I didn't realize you'd done Christmas albums, and I have a real thing about Christmas. So I actually ordered What's in the Bag today, and I'm looking forward to receiving it at home soon so I can play it for the holidays. But I think the key question here is, okay, so which came first, the musician or the tree farmer? And you know, what brought you to doing this and putting this series together, and why this particular episode? Just try to set it up for us.
Well, music came first for me when I was very young. I learned to play the piano from my mom. and eventually started my first little rock and roll band in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where I grew up, and basically just followed the lead from there to wherever it may take me. And it's taken me to some pretty cool places. So it's been wonderful. But when you ask me about forestry and conservation, it's all my wife's fault. Rose Lane and I, by the way, have celebrated 47 years of marriage now. And her family have been connected to the land for generations as farmers, tending row crops, cattle farming, but also tending forest land. And in 1981, her grandmother left her some land when she passed away, and it became our responsibility to carry on what we saw and thought of as a heritage of stewardship. And so I took it upon myself to go to the library, check out books, go to meetings, seminars, any resource I could find. This was way before the internet, by the way, of course. And eventually I enrolled in a correspondence course concerning forestry and other land use issues, which was very helpful to me. And then we began to manage our forest land. And I just fell in love with the whole concept. It means as much to me as my career in music, and we have been blessed.
Thanks.
Now, let me just say that as concerning this episode, this was such, I cannot tell you what this episode meant to us in South Carolina. 3 just beautiful individuals that had challenges in claiming their land and then in learning how to manage it. And when Carlton Owen, who we all know was I guess he still is, he's about to be outgoing, but CEO and president of the U.S. Endowment, we had talked to Carlton about maybe supporting our program. And he came to us and he said, I think I found a story that will fit the endowment and that will fit your program. And boy, did it ever. It was just an amazing experience for me to meet these wonderful people and to see the challenges that they had, again, in claiming their land and then in learning how to manage it properly. So I think the episode will speak for itself.
Yvonne, is there anything that you want to say before we get the episode started to help people understand?
First, let me say congratulations and on your anniversary, Janet, and for your 35 years, and Jenny, definitely for your 15 years. Yay! Yes. Well, I'll just talk a little bit about our property and who we are. I'm from a small town in South Carolina called Moncks Corner, if no one's ever heard of it. And I manage our land along with my sister. And we inherited the land in 2008. But our property goes back almost 150 years of being in the family. We knew that we inherited from our great-grandmother, but with further research, we found that our great-great-great-grandfather actually acquired the land right around the time that slavery ended. And he left it to our great-grandmother. And as it would be, the female owned the property. So I guess it's sort of coming down the line because my sister and I own and manage our property here. In the family proper, our immediate family, we had about 350 acres left. My grandfather farmed about 500 acres. He planted corn, tobacco. We had a tobacco curing barn, grits mill, grocery store. So, you know, it ran the gamut. And later on, he planted soybeans, etc. We now use as many practices as we possibly can. We lease the land for hunting. Our latest is dove hunting, leasing it for dove hunting. We lease for agriculture. And working with NRCS, we did some fencing. We got cows. We have goats that keep multiplying. So we've done a bit since we came to the Center for Heirs Property, and it was all of the seminars and workshops, and the light bulb, I call them, just went off. And it's acting on those light bulbs that has gotten us to this point. So we have planted 85 acres of loblolly trees, and that's what we manage. And we have about 6 stands to go to do some more planting. And it's just that we'd like to maximize the value of what we have and leave a legacy in good standing for the next generation so that they're able to hold on to the land. And as an advocate, just want to inspire others whenever, wherever I can, so that others are not losing their land and having that lack of proper usage for the land. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Yvonne. So with that, I think what we're going to do is we're going to turn to watching the episode. I want to remind everybody, if you have questions during the episode, you can put them in chat right then, and we'll have questions ready then at the end, or you can wait till we get to the end of the video. So a temporary goodbye to Yvonne and Jenny and Chuck, and then we're going to roll tape.
On this episode of America's Forests, we journey to South Carolina. The forests here are rich with history, tales that begin with the freeing of the slaves at the end of the Civil War.
When asked as an enslaved person, what do you want if you're set free? He said land.
Across the state, African-American landowners are turning lands that they've inherited into productive, profitable tree farms.
We have about 6 stands, so we have a lot of work to do.
The result is a stronger community and a stronger economy.
These landowners can unearth the potential in their land and make it work for them.
Trees are paving the way for a bright future.
It's been the best thing that has ever happened to me.
It's good to be a tree farmer.
That's good to be a tree farmer. All right, man.
Join me as I get to do 2 of my favorite things: play music and plant trees. Perfect. Woo, you're a good tree planter. Hi, I'm Chuck Lavelle. You know, in addition to my beautiful family, there's 2 things in my life that I have a special interest in and love for: music and trees. My wife, Rose Lane, and I own and manage our own forest land right here in Georgia, Shore Lane Plantation. We grow southern yellow pine as well as other species here. And you know, as I get to travel the world with the Rolling Stones or some of the other artists that I'm so privileged to work with, I get to meet all kind of folks that also have a passion and love for trees, forests, and the outdoors. And now I get to share their stories with you. So join me as we journey through America's forests.
Says I'm going back down in South Carolina, going down there to stay.
Welcome to the low country of South Carolina. These forests are filled with beautiful longleaf and loblolly pines, but they're not just wonders of nature, because you see, they connect the land to the people, to their past, to their present, and to the future.
My name is Joseph Hamilton, and most people call me Joe. We're here in Colleton County, Green Pond, South Carolina. I grew up here. I am a country boy in the sense that I love the soil. I love the trees, the openness. What I love about being a tree farmer is the sustainability. It produces, and it is a product that not only I can use, but all American and all people can use.
Becoming a tree farmer is a dream that I can certainly relate to. But for Joe, the journey was filled with legal obstacles.
I knew my family had ownership of this fairly large tract of land. I just did not know whether we had paperwork to show ownership of it.
Oftentimes, inherited land is passed down from generation to generation without a will or without legal proceedings. And because of that, some families have had to fight in the courts for years to prove that their land is legally and rightfully theirs. For Joe, the first step of proving ownership led to the Colleton County Registry of Deeds, where land records go back to just after the Civil War. All right, so where's this book you were telling me about?
All of these just records of deeds and whatnot. But here's my book that I'm telling you about. This is the book.
Wow, look at all this.
Yeah.
Joe, you've done a tremendous amount of research into your family history, so tell me about it.
Well, you know, I was still working with the Department of Defense, and I realized that we were living on heirs' property, and something had to be done, because with heirs' property, it's just, for lack of a better description, it's a quagmire.
Heirs property, according to us at the Center for Heirs Property Preservation, is land that has been passed down without a will, or the loved ones of the deceased individual did not probate their estate within the time allotted by state law. And therefore, the heirs end up owning the land jointly. It's like shares in a corporation. They don't own a piece of the land, they own a share.
The best example is a pie. Beautiful pie, cut into several slices. You can just never lift your piece out of that pie pan. You can look at it, you can show other people the pie you slice, but you can never use it, nor taste it, nor enjoy it.
Joe spent 3 full years researching the chain of title for his land. It took him that long to find the missing piece of the puzzle. Joe, who was Steve Cunningham? I see his name right here.
He's my great-grandfather. Wow. You know, Stephen Cunningham was born an enslaved person. I looked at some of the history associated with this, because what I was doing, I was building a case. I'm basically doing paralegal work without paralegal training. And then I started doing the research, and then I came across one gentleman. His name was Dr. Thomas Lenning. And I remember as a child, my parents would refer to the area where we lived as Lenning. This document here really showed the transaction that took place. Dr. Thomas Lenning conveyed that property over to Stephen Cunningham in 1874.
1874.
But if this former enslaved person, no education, could see the value of land, it would be a travesty if I did not pursue this.
Joe's story is all too common among African American families. Some freed slaves were allotted land after the Civil War thanks to General Sherman's Special Field Order 15, which came to be known as 40 acres and a mule. But the compensation of land did not endure.
After the Civil War, you know, to whom were they going to turn? There weren't any lawyers of color, so who could they trust to actually help them take care of their affairs? Didn't trust the system because the system had proven that it shouldn't be trusted. And then there's the whole issue of lack of knowledge. Low-income folk usually don't sit around the dinner table and talk about estate planning.
I always quote the gentleman Garrison Frazier, who had a conversation with Mr. Stanton, who was the Secretary of War under Abraham Lincoln, and General William Tecumseh Sherman, when asked, what do you, as an enslaved person, what do you want if you're set free? He said, land. Give us land, we will work it, we will acquire more land, and we will make it productive. So that is the fire in the belly that I come to the table with. Give me the land or show me how to acquire that land, and I will make that land produce.
For some families, proving that they own the land is just the beginning of a long journey. Making that land productive is the next big step.
When we were children standing at the head of this road, the trucks would fly by loaded with logs. I would wonder, how did those logs get on that truck? And where were they taking them?
Forests have been an integral part of South Carolina's history and economy, from pine tar to turpentine to paper. During the late 1800s, there were 31 sawmills in Sumter County alone. By the end of World War I, most of South Carolina's virgin timber was depleted, and some thought the industry was finished. Luckily, by the 1930s, interest in reforestation and sustained yield helped bring the industry back from the brink. Today, trees are the #1 cash crop in South Carolina.
You know something else I found out? You don't just get lumber out of trees. They're diaper products.
Oh, yeah.
They're doors.
Chewing gum.
Yeah, chewing gum. There's also
cleaning products.
That's it. Coming
yeah.
from trees.
Even though African Americans owned a significant percentage of the land, most were not benefiting financially from the profits generated by the lumber industry.
For South Carolina, forestry is a $21 billion industry. There hadn't been a good relationship with this industry with African Americans. Oftentimes, the land is not seen as an asset, it's seen as a liability. It's because people have spent their lives working for the land to maintain it, rather than the land working for them and generating some income.
But the ultimate goal is for you to learn about forestry as a whole, to understand the mechanics around why you should manage your land.
That's where organizations like the Center for Heirs Property Preservation come in.
The Timberland Index climbed by an average of 15%. The point to this slide is to show to you that you don't only need to invest in the stock market, you should invest in your timberland.
We're providing either the legal services or the forestry technical assistance that these landowners can unearth the potential in their land and make it work for them.
We thank you right now, and we ask these things in your holy Son, Jesus' name. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
Moncks Corner is home to Yvonne Knight Carter. And like me, Yvonne is a musician first who had to learn how to become a tree farmer. She's the organist and choir director for the Greater Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, and she graciously let me sit in.
When I retired and came back here, I looked back there and there were lots of trees then behind me, and I just said it was woods.
Yeah.
And then I met the Center for Heirs Property.
Yes.
And
Wonderful organization.
learned how to think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Started to think about what my land ethic was. So what we eventually did was plant trees.
Right.
And then I didn't have woods anymore. I had forest.
How many acres do you have of forest land?
We have about 264 acres of forest land. In the plan, we look at when to thin it,
Yes.
when to clear cut it, and when to go on and replant. So this was the first of our efforts, and we have about 6 stands. So we have a lot of work to do. As you get into it, you find that there's even more. Not only did we plant trees, but then we looking out for wildlife, so we left acreage specifically for that, which is also income. We lease for hunting, and there are people out here looking for somewhere to hunt. People are looking for acreage to plant.
So what the center has done is we've helped landowners have an aha moment, that they recognize the value that is contained within the land, and then we're connecting them to the proper tools.
The economic impact of forestry in our state is #1 among the manufacturing industry. It provides 90,000 jobs and a payroll of over $2.4 billion.
Those tools come from a wide range of groups, both nonprofits and government agencies that have come together to create the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Program.
One of the goals with the Sustainable Forestry Program is to provide the education piece that shows why we are doing what we're doing.
Scores of farmers throughout the South are being helped by this partnership between the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities and 2 U.S. Department of Agriculture agencies, the Forest Service and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. It may sound like alphabet soup, but it adds up to one mighty powerful mission.
And by the end of the day, we hope that you should have enough information and knowledge that you can make some decisions on what to do.
So it's just a fantastic program, and it helped people to get an understanding that the land they have is more than a liability. And now they have something that is income generating.
And what I think is so wonderful about this program, Chief, is that it's all about keeping families on the land and keeping the land in families.
That's a very, very powerful thing. Growing up on a family farm myself, I mean, I get it. And this community of folks that have transitioned from not having an appreciation for the wealth that they had that they were unaware of, now they value it. And it's their land. You know, don't touch my land because this is my land. And they have such a sense of pride and ownership. And that transcends into a stronger families. That's my belief anyway. It's a stronger families and stronger communities and ultimately a stronger country.
Well, I owe a great debt of gratitude to NRCS and the South Carolina Forestry Commission. I partnered up with them, and I understand now the value of land.
As you can see, the trees have kind of taken on its own now, and look at that one. That thing is about maybe 10, 12 feet almost. Yeah, this is what we call a happy tree.
I remember looking back over your stewardship plan, you know, timber income was your highest priority.
Right.
Typically, and at least in this particular area of the world, loblolly will make you a little bit more money than longleaf will.
It's all genetics. You know, all these trees are probably 2nd generation improved loblolly pine, but they're still, it's all about genetics. And you can see across the way, like I say, you will see some trees are probably 10 foot tall or taller. And then you're gonna have some closer to the 6, and then some even shorter, maybe 4.
Sure.
So it's all depend on where they were planted, how they were planted, and so forth. And you look at all the grasses out here.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that we've talked about before that you have to do is maintain your fire breaks down both sides and across the back. And always make sure your fire breaks are maintained annually.
Schulerville, South Carolina is where Mary Hill, another landowner who's benefited from the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Program, is tending her forest. This land has been in her family since the 1860s.
We own approximately 114 acres in 4 different tracts. The story is that after slavery, ending of slavery, the master gave to my husband's great-grandfather this tract for years after my husband passed away. I wondered what we could do with this land to make it more profitable for us. It was just sitting there barren. After your timber has been harvested, then they will offer you a program to replant your forest land. And then, of course, in the next 15 or 20 years, you will have more trees and you will be able to sell your timber and realize a profit from that. And then hopefully it will go on and on.
It wasn't always easy developing trust between landowners and the agencies. It took time to build these relationships.
So they went to these communities and let them know that, we're private, we're not the government if you have the fear of the government. So that piece came together, and it was a matter of helping them to understand that there's value associated with that land for which they own. Right. Many of them we saw it only as a liability, which means that anybody that drives down the road that offer them what seemed to be a good dollar, they were ready to take that dollar and lose the opportunity to make improvements that benefits themselves and their families. So the endowment, clearing all that up for them, showed them that you can actually manage this in a way that it provides a revenue stream for you and your family.
At first, I did not have trust in the program because so many folk have lost their property to the government and all. But when I saw other folk from the community joining the program and it was successful for them, then I figured it was the right thing for me as well. So I joined the program, and it's been the best thing that has ever happened to me, I think.
With all of that experience around the issue of forestry, but also the resources to help landowners implement these conservation practices, was the game changer.
It's been a blessing to a lot of other folk and to me.
So Ms. Hill, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna dig a little bit of the soil out to see if it's suitable for longleaf pine or loblolly pine planting over here. Okay. So let me get a little bit of the soil out and we'll look. And at the top, it's a little bit sandy, it's got some brown, so it's not too bad, but you can feel the moisture in the soil, right?
It's been an educational thing to work with the trees. We've already cut the timber on the property, and then now to know some 18 to 20 years later, we'll be able to profit again, so it keeps growing over and over and over.
Okay, one more time. Ooh, there we go. Okay, wait till you feel this. If you feel now, see how heavy clay that is?
Oh, yes.
Squeeze, it's a lot heavier soil. It's definitely more, it can make a ribbon. It's definitely suited for loblolly pines.
So you've got low-income individuals owning the asset. If they receive some tools, could help them move out of poverty. So it's a win-win situation. Everybody is benefiting, and on top of that, we're also improving upon the environment.
As a tree farmer myself, there's one thing that I know for certain, and that is that the vision you have for your land is a long-term vision, so that the seedlings that take sprout today, you may not harvest in your lifetime or even your children's lifetime. It's something to be passed along to future generations. You just want the lower branches, right?
Just the lower branches. And the bush hog will come through again, and we'll take off a few of those.
But I want you to remember now, when this tree gets big, Chuck did this.
Chuck did this. I will put a sign. This is a Chuck tree.
Chuck tree.
But you know, one of the things, I planted some of them, my one-year-old grandson, soon to be 1 year old, I planted some that's going to grow right along with him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's looking good, Chuck. You can take that last one out right there.
I tell other landowners, it's our time. It's our time. People of color, typically, we're not involved in the forestry arena. Now, we can look back on that and we can wring our hands and say how terrible it has been and say, woe is me, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm enjoying today and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So yes, this tree farm industry is here to stay. It's a sustainable economic engine.
That's my boy right there. Go ahead and sit for me, boy. Sit, buddy, sit. That's a good boy.
One has to have a long-term vision. I have trees planted just shy under 3 years. I cannot go out and harvest them right now unless I just want to harvest sticks. But I hope to live to be in my 90s. And so I would see the first thinning of these trees we planted. But after that, I have 3 grown children, 1 grandson. So you guys, it's yours. I'm enjoying life. I am a very, very fortunate, very, very happy man.
So it's good to be a doctor, be a dentist, and whatever, and air conditioning, refrigeration. But it's good to also know the value of trees.
It's good to be a tree farmer.
That's good to be a tree farmer. All right,
So,
man.
From
It's a
one to
pleasure.
another.
I tell you.
What a pleasure.
I tell you.
Happy to have learned that managing the forest will then give it some longevity, and looking forward to the future for the next generations coming behind us.
Those next generations are pitching in already. Mary Hill has enlisted the help of her son and grandchildren to plant and care for her trees. Okay, here we are. All right, y'all ready? Here we go.
We're gonna plant some trees.
Yeah, man. Trey's gonna take the trees and he's gonna show y'all how to put the tree in the ground, okay? We got a good spot right here. Got to make us a hole.
We're gonna take the seedling and we're gonna tap it on here so it breaks the plug loose. And we're gonna pull it out and put it right in that hole. You wanna put it in the hole?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good job.
Good job indeed. All right, now we gotta tighten it up. Jennifer needs to plant one. All right, okay. Perfect. Woo, you're a good tree planter.
My turn.
I don't have funds to leave my grandchildren, but at least I feel good in knowing that I will be able to leave them the trees and they will profit from harvesting the trees. It's a long-range thing.
Good job. Jennifer, how old are you?
6.
You're 6?
4.
Jonathan's 4. Now, these seeds are just maybe 2 years old, and I would say in 3 years they'll be as tall as you, and then in 5 years they're going to be way taller than you, and then in 15 years, what do you think, Trey?
Probably 30 feet.
30 feet? Wow. So maybe by the time you guys get to be adults, you can come back here and look at these trees and you'll have a brand new forest. What do you think?
Yeah.
Pretty cool,
So
pretty cool.
can we want some more?
Oh, I'm so excited because these are my grandchildren and these are the future farmers of the Oak Hill.
The past will never be forgotten in the forests of South Carolina, but the future is filled with promise. The trees planted today will sustain generations to come, and it's a good feeling. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you'll join us on the next episode of America's Forests with me, Chuck Lavelle. In the meantime, enjoy the woods and enjoy the music.
Well, okay, welcome back. We already have one comment in the chat that says awesome. So I can only sort of echo that. So what we want to do right now is give everyone who's watching the opportunity to ask questions. And so just put your question in chat and I will ask it. We now have a very cool and a so inspiring but some of you, I'm sure, have questions, so we'd love to take those as well. Don't be shy. But in the meantime, you know, while we're waiting for a couple questions to come in, I wanted I want to ask Jenny, and we said this earlier, this makes such sense, okay? If you help landowners, who don't have the clear title or they haven't sorted out the land ownership, if you help them get that cleared through and you teach them at the same time a way to use the land to improve livelihoods for families, it's a win for the landowner and their family. It's a win for the land because it's more sustainably, it's stewarded. It's a win for industry that is looking for sources of sustainable wood, especially in this country as opposed to going elsewhere. It's a win for the environment, for the climate because of carbon sequestration. It's a win for the community because there's more local ownership under local control. So it makes so much common sense, Jenny. So why has it taken so long to sort of like unearth this issue and put something like this together?
Well, this is an example of working with the markets, but the problem, I think, for African Americans or African American landowners is we didn't know that the forest sector was one of those industries where we could join it and be profitable. Because when you don't see someone who looks like you in an industry, it discourages you from literally jumping in and partaking of it.
Mm-hmm. Chuck or Yvonne, do you have any answer to that? You don't have to. I just
no. I just want to say that I had the good fortune not to have to fight for the land. My wife inherited land from her grandmother, and it was a smooth transition. But what I did have a challenge with was learning how to manage it. And what's so beautiful is to see these folks learning how to be good stewards of the land, and the programs that exist, like Heirs Property, to help them not only prove that the land is theirs, but also to help them know how to manage it. And there's a lot of steps involved with that. It's not just an easy, hey, put that thing in the ground and forget about it. There's a lot more to it. And it was just such a pleasure. And by the way, Yvonne, thank you for letting me play with you in that church. That was a great
And
experience for
thank
me.
you for allowing me to play with a world-renowned artist.
Well, it
Hey,
was such fun. It was such
listen,
fun.
I have a comment on that because I sing, Jenny knows this, I sing in a Black Catholic gospel choir and I'm missing it during the COVID time. I haven't sung since March. So it really hit me between the heart and whatever. I missed that singing and I didn't realize you were a choir director, Yvonne.
Yeah.
It's a secret.
All right. I'm a holy fierce alto in the St. Augustine Gospel Choir. I just want you to know that. So,
Yeah.
All right, enough about me. Let's get back to the topic at hand. So we have so this could be a good opportunity, Jenny. I think we want to help people not be confused. What's the difference between the Center for Heirs Property Preservation and the Sustainable Forest Land Retention Program? They're related, but they're not the same.
Yeah, right. The Sustainable Forestry Land Retention Program was a program of the U.S. Endowment, but now under the American Forest Foundation. But if you want to think about it, it's a network made of 8 different organizations. So the center is its own separate entity that's doing this work, and we're in the other 7 sites are dealing with heirs property and sustainable forestry, but not necessarily the way we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. So we've got another question. How do landowners get knowledge about the timber market, which this Jay Bressler understands to be pretty cutthroat and volatile?
Well, there was actually a question before that one about the size of acreage. So for our landowners, what we do is we try to cluster them with someone who has larger tracts of acreage. So in order to participate in our forestry program, we ask that you have 10 acres or greater, which is kind of the standard or the norm for our state forestry commission. So when that's not the case, and if they're adjacent to someone who does have large acreage, and if that family has quote unquote good wood, then we cluster them to make sure they can benefit even though they have smaller acreage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then the next question was about how do our landowners find out about timber, the timber market. So remember we said we conduct workshops, and at those workshops, and you actually saw one in the video where we bring our partners, who is the South Carolina Forestry Commission, could be Clemson University, and those are the people who are providing the knowledge about the timber industry. But we're also fortunate to have 2 former employees of a pretty large timber industry that is on our staff as foresters. So, and we have board members who are foresters. So we're able to share that knowledge throughout. That's how our landowners learn about it.
And what's the minimal amount of land needed for a sustainable and profitable tree farm?
So according to our forestry commission, it's 10 acres. Now, other places it may be different, but for us, that is our requirement, 10 acres.
Okay, so it's the same amount you said. Okay. Yeah. So how has the Sustainable Forestry and Land Retention Program generated, or has it generated any other ideas for programs for heiress property owners to use their property to build wealth besides the forestry industry? Are there any other partnerships like that or similar to that forming?
Well, there are some of our landowners who actually do traditional ag. And there is, and Chuck may speak to this better than I can. So it's not just forestry, but it's also forest products. It's also the whole leasing. So whatever the land is able to whatever is suitable for, then we connect our landowners with those particular organizations that do those other types of work, because our focus is sustainable forestry. But we do connect them with our partners who do other things.
Yes, and it's multi-use. Hunting was mentioned, and that's a good component of it. Hunting leases. Organizations like the National Wild Turkey Federation can get involved, and you can learn how to improve the habitat for certain species: wild turkey, white-tailed deer, bobwhite quail, and so forth. When you're looking at longleaf in particular, at a certain age, I would say around 12, 13 years old, you can start raking for pine straw. And pine straw can be quite lucrative. It's used in country clubs and developments for landscaping purposes. And so, that's another product. And it's not just about, cutting the trees for pulpwood or for timber purposes. There's a lot of ways you can make money on it.
And Yvonne, you were saying earlier you had multiple things going on, were you not?
Yes. We lease for deer hunting. Recently was requested for dove hunting. The deer hunters come in and hunt for turkey during a certain part of the year. We lease for agriculture, and they plant wheat and soybeans, corn, etc. So we do, and we're also a part of the conservation stewardship program, which is something else that the NRCS offers. And what we're doing is a practice that enhances an area that we left for wildlife. So we enhance that area for wildlife.
Okay.
With the practice using through the NRCS. So those are just some of the things that we're doing, but constantly looking for what else we can do around conservation.
I think probably once you start doing one thing, you say, well, what else can I do here? You begin to realize what a resource it is and realize there are other things. Chuck, here's an interesting question for you. Were you familiar with heirs property before you produced this video, or did someone bring the idea? In other words, how did you come to know about it yourself?
I was not familiar with it, and my longtime friend Carlton Owen, who was running the U.S. Endowment and I think is about to step down, we had talked to Carlton about trying to find some funding for an episode, and we went back and forth several times, and he finally called me back and he said, Chuck, I think I've got just the story, just the right thing that we can get involved in as an organization that you can promote with the episode and that was the heir's property. So, you know, it took a little bit of education on my part to prepare for this, but it went so smoothly. And you know, meeting these wonderful individuals, Joe and Yvonne and Mary, and it was great to see Leonard Jordan on there. He was president of the NRCS at the time, and he had a lot of insights as well.
Mhm. So I noticed that some people are putting questions in the Q&A as well. So I want to go to a couple of those because I probably missed a few. Jason Gray, longtime collaborator with our program down there at the North Carolina Rural Center, is asking, how are the 1890 land grant universities a partner in this important work, and can they be leveraged more? And I think that that's an interesting thing for all of you to think about. How could more of this happen? I mean, the Center for Heirs Property Preservation can't handle all of this across the country. How can more of this happen? Who could be a player to make more of this happen?
So may I speak to the 1890 question? And I wanted to make a joke, Janet, saying, how dare you say we can't do this nationwide, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
But we are working with the 1890 programs, and I'm going to forget the other 1882, basically the historically Black college and university that's land-based, and also the majority college. So we work together, and mainly providing for them to provide technical assistance and some education to our landowners. That's primary ways, but also remember, everybody's having budget cuts. So even though the 1890 and those universities exist, doesn't mean that they have the staff on board to touch every landowner. And so the benefit we have is when we all put our resources together, we can reach the landowner. So I would say we're complementing each other. We're not competing, we're complementing in what one organization does better, that one focuses on. So we each have our own little areas, but we, as I said, we complement each other.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts about how could more of this be happening? What's the, you know, how should government be investing more, or philanthropy, or private investors? Any thoughts on that?
If I may jump in, let me just say that it goes beyond just the African American community, because you know, you have the Latino community that also are probably in similar situations, the Native peoples. You know, we did an episode recently in Wisconsin, and part of it, we had a segment on the Menominee tribe, who own land there and are doing a phenomenal job in managing their lands. And they set an incredible example to private landowners like myself, and to Yvonne and Mary and Joe and others, as to how, you know, you can do this sustainably. And so, you know, I think it goes to all of America, you know, all Americans that have an interest in this. As we talked about earlier, it's a good thing to do. It's good for the land, it's good for the environment. And we need products to make things like paper and packaging, and we need products for lumber to build our homes and schools and churches and offices. But we also need trees to sequester carbon and to house wildlife. And so there's a big picture here to be understood.
Mm-hmm. I bet you were talking with Nels at the Menominee Forest. Yeah. I was talking to him a couple months ago. The Menominee tribe up there, I believe, has the largest, I've heard it's the largest sustainable forest in the world. Is that correct?
I'm not so sure I could confirm that, but
I've heard him say that.
I know it's very big, and I can tell you that I've seen it with my own eyes, and the management is just beyond excellent. It's really, really strong.
So how do landowners, I mean, staying with this, you know, how can government or other people help? We've got a question from Ellen McGregor on how do landowners benefit from USDA conservation programs, right? And how does the Center for Heirs Property Preservation program facilitate that benefit?
Jenny,
So go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you to take that because.
Oh, okay. So one of our partners, Ann English, was on a panel earlier today, and you know, NRCS's tagline is helping people help the land. And as I said earlier, each entity, because of budget cuts, they cannot hire particular folk. So that's why we partner together. We're NRCS's boots on the ground. Boots on the ground in the sense that we can connect to the landowners. We can make them aware of the available cost share programs so that they can apply. We help them, and Ms. Yvonne can speak to this, we help them complete the application. Where necessary, we will help them, we'll go with them to the USDA office, or we'll pair them with another landowner who already has that experience. And in Ann English's case, she spoke earlier about how she has established a pool that only our participants can partake of because of the whole ranking system around cost shares. The more experience you have, the more you're likely to be funded. So if you're talking about landowners, not just minority landowners, but landowners who don't have any experience working or having worked the land, then your chance of benefiting from cost share programs or actually accessing them are next to none. And so that's the point of having conversations. If I'm not mistaken, each NRCS office, they're required to allocate certain amount of money to historically underserved landowners. So that's the point, finding out, having a conversation, working with landowners, giving them that technical assistance so that they can apply and can receive that cost share. And
so much of,
yeah, go ahead, Ms. Yvonne. No,
much of what we've done was with the assistance of the NRCS. So the Conservation Stewardship Program, that's NRCS, the fencing, NRCS, the water system that we had to put in for the cattle, NRCS. So it goes beyond just the forestry piece. So there are just so many other things that you can do. And what I like to tell people, especially who are just getting started, it's a process and you just can't give up. You just have to keep plugging away at it because it does take time. There's a lot of learning that has to happen. Well, at least for me, before I actually got into it. I think you may have heard them talk about the trust factor earlier today. And there is that piece of learning to trust and then knowing everything you think you need to know. Well, no, not just what you think you need to know, but everything you need to know, and then move forward. And it's beneficial.
And if I may add that in addition to NRCS, the American Forest Foundation has their arm of the American Tree Farm System that offers a lot of good information. There's also the state commissions. Here in Georgia, we have the Georgia Forestry Commission that has programs for funding as well as for technical assistance. You can go beyond that, even into the Arbor Day Foundation and other organizations that are involved in forestry in general.
Well, I'm mindful of time. We promised to go until 7 Eastern, and that's what time it is. I think I want to just thank everybody, and I want to say to everyone who's put in a chat as well as put in a question and a question to be answered, that we have had a lot of interaction in our chat boxes all day since 1 p.m. Eastern. And we are pledging, I'm pledging on behalf of Jenny and Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group to go through those and to figure out a way that we're going to get in touch with people. We've got your emails and get your questions answered. Some will be answered by the center. Some will just put up on a website so that people have more places to go to find out more. I mean, we've had questions in the chat box about how do you start a conversation with heirs? How can we mainstream BIPOC issues like this? There's someone who asked, is this applicable to indigenous land as well? Which it is. In fact, we spent some time this afternoon talking about fractionated land issues. And so all of the videos of the breakout sessions our overview session earlier today and this session will also be posted on all of on our websites. So we're going to bid adieu today and thank you so much, Yvonne,
Thank
for
you.
doing what you're doing and then becoming chair of the Center for Area Property Preservation. We're going to thank Chuck for his
My
contribution to this and just dedicating so much of his time and energy and creativity to bringing this issue to the public, to the light, and to action. And I want to once again congratulate my colleague Jenny Stevens and her entire staff and organization on the Center for Area Property Preservation on their 15th anniversary. And with that, from the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group and the Center for Area Property Preservation, thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Enjoyed it.